Awesome. Hello, everyone. Lovely to see so many of you here. I hope that wherever you are in the world, you've had a bit of sunshine today. We've actually had some sun in London today, which was exciting. My name's Jem. Lovely to meet you all. I am the editor and director here at Jenny Resources. Just a couple of brief bits of housekeeping from me before we kick off. So this event is recorded. So if for any reason you do need to take a step away, that is completely fine. We'll edit that up and send that out to you in a couple of days' time. We also have all of the questions that you asked in advance, so don't worry, we do have them. We'll make sure we try and get a few through, as many of them as we possibly can. But if anything comes to you in the process of this session, please do pop it in the chat. I'll be here the whole time, so please do pop any questions in as you go. And again, we'll add those to the pile. And equally, if you have any tech difficulties, I will be here as well. Final thing is we do have closed captions available on this session too, so you can activate those at the bottom of your screen by clicking the CC button. I've probably forgotten something, but do just drop me a message if there's anything else you would like me to answer or help with throughout the session. And I'm going to stop talking for a little bit now because I'm not the expert here. And Jenny, I'm going to pass over to you.
Thank you so much. You'll hear a little toddler in the background, which is the worst timing, but I'll just pop his face up. So he's in the know as well. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today for the workshop on how to get started as a freelance copywriter. If you told me like 1 year ago that I'd be giving this sort of workshop from a faraway island in Brazil, bringing work and travel under one wing, I wouldn't have believed you. But this is the scene right now. So it means that if you do put in the work, you can get there. And I don't have any connections. I've built this up purely through effort. So there's hope for everybody here. This also means today in favor of plain functioning work, Wi-Fi over high tech, you just be following my voice. So I'll be sharing a handout post workshop, but the best thing is taking notes. A brief overview of what we'll be covering today. So first up, a run through my path into freelance copywriting. Then I'll be going on to the bare basics of freelance copywriting. Next up, we'll be connecting the dots and looking at the importance of networking. And finally, by which time this little one will be hopefully sleeping, I'll be uncovering what the 5 times 20 rule is. So without further ado, onto my path. I slid into freelance copywriting sort of by accident in 2022. I had just given notice to my employer, my in-house employer, and I was looking for work. I've been applying to myriads of in-house positions in the industry, and the feedback that I was getting: overqualified, underqualified, 4 days in office, which means I couldn't see my little ones, strange company culture, meager pay, so it was all not linking up. And while applying for in-house positions, I had also sent off this cold pitch to what at the time seemed like the perfect client. It was a digital marketing agency in London. And I just sent it off without expecting anything. And it turns out it was the best thing I did. I got the gig at what I thought was a brilliant day rate. It was my day rate. And it kept me going for a couple of months. There was one interview. There was no application tests. There was no time wasted. It was my day rate. But it wasn't until I actually started self-branding more and doing the sort of active client finding work that I'll be running you through that I got more clients in. So that leads us to the next section, the bare basics. I would say to start off as a freelance copywriter, you need 2 things. Number 1, a portfolio. Number 2, a website. So the portfolio is your CV. It replaces it. The website is your face. It shows you. The portfolio showcases your work. The website, your authority. If you don't have a portfolio yet, coming from a journalism background or anything, you can mock one up, get in, link up with somebody that's into design, something like that. I did my first portfolio that way, and it wasn't strong by any means, but it got me in the gigs, and it'll make all the difference. Tailor your portfolio to the sort of clients that you're looking to get. So it's a no-brainer, but there's a strong case for niche here that is still debated in the industry. So the types of copy that you want to get, the types of client that you want to get, if you're looking for social copywriting for, say, premium brands like I do, or that's one of my niches, tailor your portfolio to exactly that. I do my portfolio in a PDF that I send around when pitching, around 10 to 15 pages to let the content breathe. And it contains all the work I'm proudest of. Onto the website. I saw a significant difference in client acquisition before and after I had my website, especially my own domain as well, which is one of the reasons why I included here. There's no need to be tech savvy or anything. There's lots of options to go with a host and then personalize your website from there. I highly recommend and use Squarespace, which has pre-built templates that are very easy to use, easy to personalize, so it looks and feels like you. On my website, I have links also to some of the works I've produced. It is a sort of portfolio on my website, but it doesn't replace my portfolio. The ones that I feature on my website are the ones that I can share publicly, but because of copywriting work, copyrights, I am limited in my capacities there. But get creative, speak to your clients after you've produced your work. If you can have copyright to feature it on your website, that would be the ideal scenario. There is a cost factor, obviously, to a website usage. So if you're thinking about the one thing to get started with, I would definitely say build your portfolio first and make it really good and outstanding, and then invest in a website. But yeah, from experience, I can tell you having a website can bring you that additional client in that's on the fence. As a next step, even you might say you want a personalized email, again, to build your authority, your trustworthiness, but it's not a priority. Now on to connecting the dots. Building your network, and it's your network, is everything, especially when you're starting out. The number one thing to do on your list is to contact everybody you know, former colleagues, friends, etc., and just say you're available. Hey, how are you doing? I'm now a freelance copywriter and would love to help on that front. Keep me in mind, keep me on file. You get the gist. So this is the warm pitch. The warm pitch is the most underestimated tool for success that you've got. It works brilliantly. In the past year, it got me in around 9 clients, some of which are retainers. So that's regular clients. Similarly, when you finish work with a client, you can and you should ask them to refer you. So that's additional opportunities in the pipeline. By the way, I'm open to more copywriting projects. Please share with your network. Something like that might lead you a long way. The next method to find clients is the cold pitch. I think lots of people have given up on the cold pitch, but I think it's a super effective method to find new clients if you stick with it. Stick with it day by day, month by month. I use and highly recommend LinkedIn. LinkedIn is your gateway to work in many respects, but email can work too, or Instagram, Facebook. But yeah, as I say, the most success that I've found is via LinkedIn. Email, just as a comparison, might take longer as well, since you need to figure out the right email format, if it's not publicly available. But yeah, it's also a second option. So for cold pitching, you need to keep in mind that it's something for the long run. So 10 cold pitches per week are not likely to get you far. We're thinking 10 to 50 pitches per week, per day, with the expectation to receive 1 lead per week or so. Not in the first month, but from the second month onward. It's very tiring. It is very exhausting. But at the same time, it can bring you some of the most valuable clients in your client portfolio. So what I suggest is keeping track of the people that you pitch in a spreadsheet with all the details, so that you can see where you've landed success, when you can make a note of the times that you've followed up with them in, say, 1 to 2 weeks. What to include in a cold pitch. So the way I've experienced most of my success while balancing the amount of cold pitches that I've set myself as a target, is to create a template and then adapt it to each client. So start with an intro, who you are, what you do, what you bring to the client. Always think of the perspective of the client. Is all about them. Say you're available for this and that. Link your website at the end. Even better if you make it even more tailored and find something that is particular about the client. Say a problem that you can solve for the client. If it's something like a tone of voice disparity between their Instagram, their newsletter channels. Hey, I saw your communications, they're not aligned across the board. Can I help you with this and that? This sort of personalized communication, but this sort of personalized pitch is likely to get you even more responses. So as I said before, during the first month, you're not likely to get that many responses, but I promise it will pick up. And what's been so beautiful to see in the industry is that people are nice. They're nice, and they will just say, hey, we don't have anything at the moment, but I'll keep you in file. I'll link you up with the right person. I think the freelance industry is a very supportive community if you are open to embrace it. And people will come back to you. They will remember you, the ones that are right for you. So even if you don't get an immediate response, or if you've been put on file, people will come back once they have a project on board, on the table for you. Next, how to find clients. Find as in how to actively look for clients, connecting with the relevant people. So I send out connection requests, usually on LinkedIn, to people that I think would be potential leads. So brand marketing, content marketing, copywriting, editorial. I've got a list of all these, and then I look for all the people that work at a particular company in one of these sectors. This can, it's a disputed approach in some cases, but it has yielded me significant leads. So disputed because not always will people in the relevant sector be the ones that will end up hiring you. So take it with a pinch of salt and think about the company size. The larger the company, the more likely the sorts of people that work in these sectors will be hiring copywriters. The smaller the company, think startup scale, the more likely that a founder or so would hire a copywriter themselves. And on the other hand, also people, there's been cases where people have just recommended me and redirected me to the relevant person in the company. So It's just making that connection and not being afraid to make it. The main thing overall to keep in mind is who you are targeting. So the brands you're targeting. You do not want to appeal to everybody. You do not want to write for everybody. Niching, especially at the beginning, is super crucial from experience, because it sets you up for a particular client. So if you produce work in that sector, it means you have work in that sector to show to your next client. It means you don't have a roundup of just random types of work. You have a piece of portfolio that's dedicated to one thing, and then the clients that you're pitching, they will be convinced because you've done that sort of work already. It has its pros and cons, and after you've built your initial niche, you can broaden from there. But to begin with, I would highly recommend this approach because it will get you faster to your goal than a non-niched approach. So on to the next sort of, the next type of, copywriting method, copywriting client finding method, which is actively looking for gigs. So again, LinkedIn here is your best friend and it's flooded with opportunity. What I usually do, and you'll soon see what I mean by active here, is open LinkedIn. I'll just share my screen quickly so you can see what I mean. I can see, I think, Jem, is this your screen on here?
Oh, we can't currently see your screen.
Just 1 second. I think I'm trying to connect, but it's not showing me. Here we go. So yeah.
I think it's about to appear. There we are, yeah.
Lovely, thank you. Let me just go back to LinkedIn. So the way to do it is to put in all the keywords, the relevant keywords that you're looking for. So I usually use hashtag, let's say, freelance copywriter. So this is a very general one. Copywriter, which means it will give you general responses. So it might not be the best thing to do initially, but it's one of the main ones, which is why I'm featuring it here first. So you want to filter by posts. Then you want to, depending on, so at the start of my freelance copywriting career, sorry, this has dropped to the wrong place. Now, I used to do this on a daily basis. Now I do it every other day. So what you input here will depend on how often you do it. So we might want to do the past 24 hours if we do it daily, since then we're seeing the latest posts here. And you just scroll through. So there's some odd or irrelevant ones here, obviously, that don't pertain to copywriting gigs, and it's just self-branding. And today we don't have anything here. So let's go to the next one. As I say, this is a very generic one, but it's one to keep in mind. Next one I would recommend is putting your niche in, so fashion copywriter. No results for today, that's fine. Let's have a look at last week. This is self-advertising, nothing today. Next one, luxury copywriter. And you do this in a self-determined rhythm. And I will guarantee you'll find loads of postings that are relevant to what you're looking for. So that's one of the ways. I'll just stop sharing now. Sadly not today. but within the past couple of weeks, for example, I've experienced, the whole world is talking about, lacking opportunities, and then you find them there. So it's this part of LinkedIn that doesn't have the obviously sponsored jobs, but they're native postings. Cool. So these postings often come from recruitment agencies. They also come from brands themselves. So just see who you're getting in touch with, and they all have different criteria for collaborating, obviously. For recruitment agencies in general, and this will be on my handout later as well, I recommend introducing yourself as a first start. Lots of recruitment agencies will also post the same job at the same time. So you'll see like similar criteria. They will keep you in file, but more often than not, the post, it will first be posted on LinkedIn, and then they'll sort of go through for individual candidates, just because it speeds up the whole thing. But so a general recommendation for introducing yourself there. The downside to these, to this approach is these sorts of comments, they sometimes attract near viral responses. So you can easily find like 200 plus comments on some of them. You need to be quick, and you need to be you need to stand out from the crowd. You need to figure out some way, which in copy, I think, is very, I want to say easy to do. It's not, but since it's words, and since you're looking at words in a comment, often in such a scenario, it's easier to do than in other sectors. So find a way of how you can stand out. And as an additional option, I would recommend, and this again comes with a paid section, but DMing the person directly. You might not be in their connection field, but from experience, it's given me some of these gigs that have attracted viral responses because I spoke to them directly. But so that's why I've put this last on the list of methods how to find copywriting gigs, but it's one nevertheless. And now on to the question of how you actually get everything under the roof. What I call the 5 times 20 rule of copywriting. So the 5 times 20 rule is very simple. In an ideal world, you'd be having 5 clients, each of which would bring in a fifth of your income. It's difficult to achieve, and there's lots of work to be done at the beginning. But it means also that if one of your clients goes, you still have 4, and your world still stands strong. How can you get there? There's 2 straightforward methods. So number 1 is to look at your existing portfolio of clients. For example, the ones that send you things through on an ad hoc basis, and start a conversation with them how to transform them into retainer clients. So by retainer clients, so that's the ones that you're having, you're getting regular work from for a certain amount of days or hours per week. It could be that you evaluate the work that you've been doing so far for them, and you see some sort of red line. Say you've been doing roughly, I don't know, 10 hours for them. You've been doing roughly 3 emails per month for them, and you can then come with that proposal. How about setting us up on a project basis, or on a fixed day basis, or something like that? I give you 5 traffic driving emails every month for so and so much. That way you can get into a more stable form of sustaining yourself. The number 2 is to pitch your services as a retainer service. So it's the same concept as above, but you do it from the get-go. So instead of marketing the services as a one-off, as an ad hoc sort of service, you say, hey, I want to help you on that sort of vertical CRM, social, every month for so and so much amount of money, for so and so much amount of days per month. So it's all things that you can take into consideration, according to your needs. But yeah, this is the second option. Now, to tie it all together, I would say the last step is the active self-branding posting. When I started off, I used to do it very regularly. I now have slowed down because I have so much work, and it doesn't fit into my schedule, but it's still a very important part of the overall copywriting, the client acquisition formula. But to regularly be part of the conversation, see which topics are being raised in your industry, respond to those, see what your ideal clients are talking about, what they are lacking, talk about this sort of stuff, get in touch with people, with your ideal clients, basically, and start a conversation with them, even through that sort of self-marketing. It can yield more things that you than you would have believed. And yeah, that is it in a nutshell. Very keen to take your questions now.
Yeah, we have a lot of questions, as discussed before we start. So I will kick off with advance, but if anyone here has, I can see there's already a few in the chat, but if anyone has anything they would like to ask themselves, please do just pop that in the chat, and then we can come to you directly, and make sure that we make the best of the next half an hour. So you mentioned at the start of your chat around you were saying maybe a year ago you wouldn't have thought you'd be in a position to be giving this kind of talk or advice, and I'd be interested to know at what point I guess when you started this journey, you realized it was working. I think often when you're first starting out, you can maybe feel like you're not getting anywhere. So how long did it take you to think, actually, all of these things I'm doing are starting to pay off?
Yeah, I would say when I started to get recommendations from clients that I'd been working with before, recommendations, and when I was asking for when I was doing warm pitches, basically, as well. But no, I would say recommendations because people were acknowledging the work that I've been doing. They were seeing it was first class and of a very good standard, and they wanted others to use those services too. In terms of timeline,
sorry to interrupt. So is that something you would ask for as well? So if you're working with someone, and do you feel like you've done a good job, they've done it, would you say, hey, is it possible for you to give me a recommendation?
Yeah, absolutely. So feedback should be on your list post work. So once you've finished the project, you should ask for feedback. You've given them work, you've produced work for them, they've given you work, you've produced work for them, but you're still you don't have that sort of in-house setup whereby you get regular feedback from a manager. So you're you should ask for feedback from your clients to be able, to see what their response is, and also for self-branding purposes, of course. They you should ask also if they're happy for you to publish it. You can also go through LinkedIn and ask for a recommendation there directly, so it features on your page, but it is something you should do.
Awesome. Right, we've had quite a few questions in the chat. So Angela, would you like to ask your question directly if you're here? I'm keen for there to be less of me, more of everyone else, but we'll see if you're here.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi. I have a couple. Can you hear me? I don't even know if.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great. I have a couple. One is that I have a website as both a features journalist and a copywriter. I was told that's okay to kind of house your portfolio on the website, but also I've got my sort of journalism portfolio on there and my copywriting portfolio.
Yeah.
Is that okay? And so it's just tricky sort of marketing yourself as both.
Yeah. You have dedicated sort of pages for both, right? So you have say one within you have one umbrella page for all your copywriting and one umbrella for your journalism. I think then it really comes down to appealing to both clients, so the journalist publisher and as well as the marketing publisher, appealing to both on your homepage, so they will end up clicking through to the individual pages. But I think it's all your name. I do some journalism. It's not sometimes I update my folio on my website with pieces from there, but it's openly advertised as a copywriting website only. But I think it's an intelligent approach, because at the end of the day, it's you and it's two strands of work that are closely related. But the thing is just making sure that you catch the attention of both potential clients on the homepage.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Right. We'll go to Eva next.
Thanks. I am here. Hi. I'd love to hear a bit more about the PDF portfolio that you mentioned. Do you include context as well as your output? So do you like share the assignment and then what you did with it? And do you customize it for each client, or do you have one that's for the whole industry?
So that's a very good one. I usually, so for each client, I have like mini portfolios that I have on standby when I put the actual one that I'm sending out. When I put that together. For projects that are easily understandable, no context needed here, since the project speaks for itself. But if it's something more complex and you think you require context, I would definitely add it in, but in a subtle way, so that the copy and the project itself steals key focus. And then in terms of tailoring, it should be tailored to each client, as I implied in my presentation. So if you're applying for a freelance social copywriting gig, tailor it to that. If it's CRM, tailor it to that. It's basically like a CV, as I said before. The portfolio is your CV in the freelance world. So think of it like building a CV. Would a person that's hiring me for this and that job, would they want to see this piece that's actually beautifully written but not relevant? Would they want to see it here? Would it mean something to them? Always think from the perspective of the client. What would it mean to them? Would this mean something? Would that not mean anything? But does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Awesome. We've had so many questions, I'm struggling to keep track. So I think we're going to go to Lauren next.
Hi Jenny, how you doing?
Hi.
So I've got a background just entirely in journalism, like Angela, mostly features, but also news. So I'm just curious, if you're starting out in copywriting, how can you position your journalism work when it comes to making that portfolio? I mean, is it even possible? How do you do that the best way?
I think through the niche. So if you say, what's your background? Do you have a niche in your journalism?
I mean, I'm a very proud journalist, so I write features about absolutely everything. I mean, I think that's actually probably one of the best things I can write about anything.
Yeah.
That's my niche.
Yeah. I think if you'd said otherwise, I would say go through your niche and position yourself as the expert in that niche that takes all the knowledge they've gathered through really in-depth features writing and translates it into copy. So you have an innate attention to detail and then sort of broaden out. You might also be able to apply that in a more generalist form, since you've got that very keen eye for detail. You've got you're looking very closely at things, relations in the world. And then with copy, it's more about nearly abstracting it and shortening it to make it sellable. So I would, in your position, I would argue with the qualities that you bring. The qualities that you bring in terms of depth of writing, research as well. Research is a very key one in your case, and that will make your case unique.
Awesome. We had a couple of questions about kind of like rate setting and how often you kind of review that. So I just don't know if you had any kind of advice there on how you assess what you view a good rate, how often do you review that, and if you do review it, how you approach that with clients, if that's something you've tackled yet.
Yeah. So just coming into the new year, for example, between 5 and 8% raise, that is absolutely fine for retainer clients. That is fine, and that should be as well with the state of things and the economy. With rate setting at the beginning, I said in my presentation, the first freelance rate that I set, I was so proud of it, only to see obviously there is no norm, but there are pointers, markers in the industry by which one can go, and it was below that. So be very confident. Think of rate setting. Well, think of everything you have to account for that in-house employees don't have. You don't have paid holidays. You don't have paid sick pay. You don't have a paid lunch break. You like loads of benefits that they are getting, you're not getting. How much extra would you need to charge your clients to be able to get them? That's a question everybody individually needs to answer for themselves. How many hours even do I want to work per week? And that will, I would say set yourself a base rate, like that's the minimum I want to get for everything. And then set yourself a base rate for all the benefits and then calculate it. There have been instances where I accepted a rate that was a little bit below what I wanted just because I loved the project so much. And I wanted experience in that field. It was still paid. So from my point of view, it was fine. It's not the ideal case, but it can get you ahead in a particular niche. But yeah, overall, I can also, since you guys are interested, I can share a link to what I think is a brilliant overview of particular day rates in particular sectors in the industry. And this, I think it's a PDF. It includes a section on the creative sector and copywriting. So let me just make a note to include that, because I think you'll love that.
Yeah, that would be great. We've had a couple of people asking around kind of
Yeah,
like what, like, you know, I think it's quite hard if you obviously that number might be different for everyone, but I think when you're just starting out and you have no idea what to expect,
yeah,
like just like a bit of
yeah,
a starting figure, if you had any thoughts on that or places where people could go to find that, I think that would be
yeah.
super helpful.
Actually, yeah, starting figure for, I would say, junior copywriters, 200 to 250, 275. More established ones, 300, yeah, between 275 to 400, and really senior, 350 up to 500.
That's
So
super
that's,
helpful. I think
yeah,
sometimes, yeah, that's super helpful. And you
yeah.
you mentioned around that kind of negotiation aspect. Do you find it's easier to negotiate for copywriting work than it is to negotiate on price for journalism? It feels to me as if there's maybe a bit more flexibility to
Yeah,
say I
I
need a bit more
definitely
here.
think so. Yeah, yeah. I think what you're selling with copy is you're selling skills. And if you come to the whole conversation from a point of view, from a value point of view, that sets the scene entirely differently. Because it means, yeah, they're actually getting value. They're not just I mean, I don't want to underestimate the important work that journalists do, but unfortunately, if you sell things that are truly sellable and make more money for a brand, they will want to give you more money for that because they can see a profit in there for themselves. So with that in mind, in that mind framework, it's easier to get higher rates through copywriting work.
Yeah, it's about kind of, I think you're totally right. I think it's about the link, isn't it, between that word, the words that you're writing are being directly related and tied back to some kind of number for a brand. So that perception for them, I can totally see that. Right, let me go back to our question. So one of the questions we had in the chat from India, who is in the library, so I'm going to read it for them, says, as an undergraduate, soon to be a graduate, do you have any advice for putting together portfolio if they don't really have any copy experience, so but maybe, you know, they've done an English literature degree, they've done a bit of journalism on the side, could maybe, I guess, make some of their own stuff. Do you have any advice for someone that maybe doesn't know what to put in it in the first place?
Yeah. Look at the sort of brands you want to write for and just try and write something for them. If it's like their Instagram, write a couple of captions. Don't use the very first ones that you're writing as examples, because you're likely to just improve as you write. But I think that is a really good one. You don't need anything for that. It's just, yeah, building it on your own. I know it can be, what I found it difficult was when building parts of my portfolio with prospective work is you don't know who you're writing for, because will they read it? Won't they? But yeah, if you have a very clear idea of your target audience, like you're writing for up and coming fashion brands from Africa, something like that, it's much easier to get into it, and you have a very clearly established like client in front of your eyes.
Absolutely, I think that's really good advice. That's what my partner works in marketing and copywriting, so was always talking about having that audience in mind. So I overhear that a lot. I probably should have asked this question a little earlier, actually, because you were talking about rates. But a really interesting question that we have in the chat is, how do you, I guess, juggle multiple clients when everyone wants you on a day rate? It sounds from, as you've been talking so far, that day rate is the kind of preferred way to go. But how do you deal with that, for example, when one client maybe says, oh, I want you for 3 days a week, and another one wants you for 3 days a week, just to, I guess, around how you juggle all of those things together?
Yeah. So at the end of the day, unfortunately, if you're going with day rates, there's only so and so many days in a week. So you're going to need to make your choice. What I found, especially with warm pitches, is that you have a little bit more leeway in determining the scope of things and putting it on a project basis. So hours are more flexible that way. You just have a deadline that you need to adhere to. And then when you work, if it's after your day project, if it's on the weekends, if you're happy to put in that work, which I've done on loads of occasions, there's that option. It obviously, yeah, as I've just implied, it means much more work on your end, but it can really pay off. I've had caring level clients approach me so that talk, yeah, just for the dedication that I did in this way. So it can really pay you off, which is the good news, but you need to put in a lot of work. But yeah, it's not easy because yeah, actually some another few tips on that is consider the format, the sort of vertical you're writing for. If it's social, for example, social channels, people by nature, they need to be reactive and so on. So that is likely to be looking at, like, when you're working things like these, your work output of like as tied to a particular time in the day or so. I think also by nature that they are more flexible with schedules and such. So that might be one area where you have a more flexible scope to start with. So prioritize those over more rigid ones. By rigid ones, I mean projects that adhere to BAU, so business as usual, like timed newsletters, or like tightly timed, I should say, because sometimes a brand will just send off one newsletter a month. So it all comes down to who you're working with or who you want to be working with and their schedule. But there are sectors within the industry that are a little bit more flexible than others.
And when you do with the kind of, I guess, projects you've done before, do you typically approach it as, you know, someone's booked me for a day, so I will just do that on a Monday from this time to this time? Or you kind of hinted a little bit there that sometimes you do that a little bit more flexibly. So is it sometimes possible with other clients to actually just be tracking that on your own end, and kind of saying to them, it will take me a day to do this, and as long as I deliver it by that set amount of time, as you say, that only works in certain areas of the industry, but is that another possibility for kind of juggling it a little easier?
Yeah. I mean, if you're going hourly based, if you have a set deadline, if they don't say explicitly, hey, you need to work from that time until that time on that specific day, it's fine. If they say, like, yeah, I have clients at the moment as well. I'm as I said, I'm working remotely from Brazil, and they're all understanding of like time differences. I feel freelancers are well respected overall, but yeah, if it's a valid client, obviously, even if it wasn't, but you want to respect what they need and what you want to get out of it. And if you just say, hey, I have, I don't know, childcare to run at this and that point, or something else has come into my life that I cannot work 8 to 5, as long as you deliver the output and that's fine for them, that should be fine.
Awesome. And final question about this, which I feel like you've already answered, but we had tons of questions in the chat about it. Is just, are you transparent about having multiple clients? I would assume so, because you're only contracted for a couple of days a week or for a specific project. But do you communicate that to clients? You know, do you talk about availability? You know, you mentioned you don't get holiday benefits, for example. Is that something that you, again, communicate to clients when you say, I'll be taking this period of time off? How do you juggle that?
Yeah. So in terms of mentioning other projects, they only need to know what's relevant to the project at hand. So if you want to be proud of something and communicate that proudly to them, just mention your client roster. You don't need to say that, like, tomorrow you'll be working for that competitor or anything, because that can just create a sense of, limitedness in their own mind. but yeah, you of course you need to do all the time management there to ensure it works for you. And sorry, can you repeat the second part of the question?
So yes, the first part, which you've covered off, was about mentioning other clients. The other half was around if you were to decide to take annual leave or whatever. Just I guess maybe the tone of how you communicate that. How do you manage that? Because there are going to be times when you need to take time off.
Yeah. So I think it's easier to do probably with retainers than others, since they know you, they value you for your work. Of course, they want you back. You're giving them exactly what you need. So for these instances, it's just a matter of like, yeah, talking to them as you would talk to a manager, I would almost say, when in-house employed. In other instances, I acknowledge it can be much trickier. I had a copy gig last year when I was transparent about my holiday, a holiday of 8 days, and then 1 week before these 8 days, I had started work with them. During my holiday, they decided they did not want to work with me anymore because I went on such a long holiday. So it's a one-off in the industry that I've encountered, but sadly, it still happens, and it especially happens when you start onboarding a new client. At the end of the day, that client was not the ideal client for me, because would I want to work for such a client that doesn't respect my personal boundaries and my work schedule that I had already set up and that we had, of course, already discussed. So there's this question of just like work ethics that you want to ask yourself. Is this the ideal client for me if I tell them from the very get-go that this is time I've already booked off? On the other hand, you are not liable to tell them anything. You're not an in-house employee. So, and on the other hand, they don't have work guaranteed for you since it's a freelance contract. So I'm not saying go for that route, because it can just put a question mark for them into the room once you get to mention it. But there is no liability on either side. So be aware of that and stand in for the rights that you have, since it's risky territory for both.
And this is everyone, by the way, this is your less than 10 minutes, just over 5 minutes warning. So if you've got a question you've been sitting on for the entire time, now is the chance to put that in the chat. So we had there's a couple more in the chat that I'll try and whiz through. So James said was interested to know a little bit more about how to get your first clients when you don't have a portfolio of published work. So just maybe if you could expand a little bit more. I know we've talked about that a little bit, but potential convincing clients that you can do a job, even if you don't have that portfolio. I think we touched on this maybe already, but is there value to work that hasn't been published? So sending things that haven't gone anywhere, but you've just made for that purpose.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing to start off. Do that, or warm pitching that I mentioned in my presentation. So speak to the people that you know. It doesn't, if you're just coming out of university and haven't got work experience, or not that much of work experience in your sector, just speak to your friends, locals. You see everywhere in the world there's need and there's opportunity for copy, everything that you see. So just approach the world, your environment, with that. Hey, your friend is, I don't know, launching this and that. Even if it's just for fun, can I take part in it and produce some work? There might be the question of unpaid work, obviously, at the beginning. It's one you need to answer for yourself. I'm not in favor of it. But at other times, I've done it just to get certain projects in. I have not done it often, but then these projects have led on to more leads. So if for the, it's more for long-term thinking. Then of course it also depends on the sort of project. But I think unpublished work and warm leads, the people that you know, are your ticket here.
And I think also we often, I think, know, as you say, everyone needs copy, and we probably know more people than we think. I think everyone always goes, I don't know anyone. But actually, if you kind of put yourself out there as well, you talked a little bit earlier about actually just posting things fairly regularly, and making yourself known to be available. I think actually sometimes you do just have to knock the door down a bit. Sarah, can we come to you if you're I appreciate, I think I've kept you waiting for ages. If you're still here, would you like to ask your question yourself?
Yes, absolutely. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Jem and Jenny, for your time this evening. It's been so insightful and helpful. I'm really grateful. Thank you. My question was around, Jenny, how you got your first break into the fashion and luxury industry. Was it that you worked in-house first, or did you reach out to people like you've kindly shown us this evening in terms of reaching out on LinkedIn?
Yeah, so my way was in-house. I worked at Farfetch initially in the German team, then moved to the in-house agency, then my Teresa. So lots of specifically fashion, luxury fashion brands. But yeah, with the right portfolio, yeah, you can get into it that way as well. It can be more competitive if you come into freelance copywriting without that background, specifically in fashion, since it's such a competitive sphere generally, but it's not impossible. So if you have a stellar portfolio that you've created by yourself, even if it's not published work, that works.
Yes, amazing. Thank you. Can I squeeze in one more question? I know I'm being really naughty.
Yeah, go on.
You mentioned, thank you, Jem. You mentioned about clients you work with, copyright, that you can't share some of the work. So I with some of the clients I work with, I've signed NDAs also. How do you then, for your portfolio, share some of that work with potential new clients?
Yeah, it's also via NDA. So it needs to be protected, unfortunately, or fortunately. So they need to acknowledge that too.
Yes. So have you shared any like ghostwritten articles that are out publicly and said that you were behind writing this, or do you not share anything?
So
I
is the
only
question, sorry, that were you saying, Jenny, that you do sometimes share things with another NDA? Was that something you said, or have I misunderstood the answer?
Yeah. Does that answer it?
That makes sense. Sorry, I didn't catch that first. Thank you, Jem, for clarifying. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Sorry, I cut in. Did that answer your question? Hopefully.
Yes. Yeah, I need to think about getting together an NDA for my work then. Because, yeah, I have no idea where to start regarding that, but I shall research, and thank you for the tip.
And one of the things, we had a question in advance actually, which I will put to you quickly now, Jenny, if that's okay, is just if there are any other resources that you could point people to. I appreciate we've covered a lot of stuff here, from NDAs to rates, anywhere in particular. This may be in your handout. If so, then feel free to say, wait for the handout. But if there's anywhere else you'd recommend people take a look.
There are a couple of people that I recommend following on LinkedIn, who I will share in the handout. There's also a newsletter. Let me just pull it up here. Actually, I wait for this every week. And it's just no, actually, I'll just keep it short and find it at the right point of time and include it in the handout. But
in which case people can expect it.
Yeah.
It will come into your inboxes.
Yeah.
It'll come into your inboxes when we edit this together as well. We're basically at time. Is there anything else you wanted to add, or I feel like we've covered a lot, but I always like to give you the chance to throw in any last tip or piece of advice, or maybe I guess your one takeaway, if someone only takes one thing away from this hour, what would you most like them to go away in action?
Start doing it. I was afraid of starting my freelance copywriting business for too long, and it's, in comparison to people that have been laid off, it has been really stable. I have not had a day when in the past year, when I did not actually have work because I didn't want to work on that day. It can pay off hugely, and not oversell yourself, but acknowledge the worth and the price that you're bringing to clients, the value. Don't undersell yourself, I should put it that way, because that's one of the things that that I did at the beginning, where looking back, I wish I'd done it differently, especially as a woman in the room. But yeah, these two.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. We covered so much in such a short amount of time. We will make sure to send you all the recording. We'll send you loads of links and loads of stuff. And thank you all for coming. Have a wonderful evening, and especially thank you to you, Jenny, for sharing many insights. So have a good evening, everyone.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.